It was rendered.
Okay.
Oh, do you need a
Comes back, we should have
strip,
audio.
Andrew?
Yeah.
This one long enough?
Audio walking around the room. Should still be able to hear, see if it's fairly quiet. And as well.
All right.
Howdy, should still work. Howdy, howdy. Frank, as usual, nice to meet you.
Initially, do the money thing.
All right, I'm gonna call to order this regular session meeting of the Park City School Board on April 19th at 3 p.m. Can we please do the Pledge of Allegiance? Andrew, would you like to lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to move into closed session for the purpose of discussing a strategy session to discuss pending or reasonable intimate litigation and or to discuss the character and professional competence or physical or mental health of an individual.
I make a motion to move into closed sessions for the reasons stated.
Sorry. Thank you. Anne?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Yes. All right, we will move into close.
These up here.
Actually, I can get it right. Scroll over. Let's see if we can hear ourselves. Raise your hand. Go.
I just wanted
We all are.
It takes a couple years.
Hi. Oh, you're not. I'm like, you're not. I'm like, looked over and just saw Dr. Here. Hi, I'm Erin. Sorry.
I'm Zach. I'm gonna be going next year.
Perfect. It's great to meet you.
Nice to meet
I'm Erin, I'm the president. Everybody else will be coming back in just a second.
Okay.
And this is our new board. I'll let you-
That works. Nice to meet you. All right. Hey. MOU for, are there commercial? I mean, no, 6 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, I did not. Yeah. I'm actually in the leadership class over there. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I heard it.
Yeah, I recognize you now.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, yes, I'm there.
Yeah.
Popping in. Okay. Hi. You were explaining this?
Yeah, I did.
It was fun.
Yeah.
She had a good time. It was still too much for her, so as much as we made accommodations. Not school. She was like, yeah, so it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Because I was looking back.
Yeah, I was down in the front
You're
row.
done. Yeah.
I go down in the front row or like in the back left.
Okay, I think I remember. Yeah.
82, or just see how I like the position, and then I might do it again senior year.
Hi.
Okay.
Are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of cool. He's doing a lot of stuff.
Perfect. We just need Wendy to come back in and we will get started. I'll have you say those things. Yeah. Yes. So I'll start. All right, everyone. So we've already opened the meeting, coming back from close. We're gonna go into board candidate interviews. But before we do so, the board would like to take a moment and acknowledge the fact that we lost one of our colleagues, Kara, a little over a week ago. So we'd like to take a minute and have a moment of silence for her. Thank you. And I think on behalf of the board, I just want to tell her family what an honor it was to serve with her, how much we enjoyed her, and her loss is strongly felt, and our thoughts are with her and her family and friends. With that being said, we will now move on to the board candidate interviews. Before we go into them, we are gonna, it will go Carlos, Mandy, and then EJ. And as we start, I'm gonna have Todd go over some of the specifics for those candidates to have an understanding. And then I will have Mandy and EJ step into the lobby and wait, and we'll interview Carlos first. So, Todd. Yeah, I just thought it'd be easier. I thought it'd be easier just to do it, cover it with each one while everybody was in here.
So thank you for coming this evening. This is a great opportunity to visit with members of our community who are interested and concerned about education. So this is a great day for us. We are going to go through a process that will create an appointment. And the appointment is for District 4, and the appointment is for the period of the time that they're appointed until the outcome of the election in November. So this is not a separate pathway to become an individual or a candidate on the ballot. This is to serve that period of time until the outcome of the election is known and that person is seated in January. So this is for a very limited time period for this appointment. The process that we'll go through today will involve 2 steps. The step today is to go through a number of questions. I believe we have 6 questions. No, actually we have 8 questions. And we will give each candidate the opportunity to respond to those questions in order. The board members will reserve the opportunity to ask any follow-up or clarifying questions as we go through the process. But hopefully the questions are straightforward enough that each of our candidates are comfortable in responding. The second part of the process will actually take place in a week. I think it's set for April 25th, where an announcement of that appointment will be made. So today is the interview process, step 1. Step 2 announcement will take place on the 25th of April.
That
cover
is
the basics
correct.
for you?
Yes, and I think our thought process is on the 25th that we will actually have that person sworn in that day, if that would work. So the 3 candidates, if you could be back, I think at 5:30 on Monday, the 25th, we will discuss an open session, make the appointment, and then have the swearing in. Then we go straight into a hearing about the bond at 6 p.m. So perfect. So with all of that, I will ask Mandy and EJ to please step out, and I will ask Carlos if you would please come to the rostrum. Thanks, ladies. And if you guys just want to go back to the lobby and just hang out, that would be great. Thank you. Come on, right on here. Join us. And there's a list of the questions at the table. And Todd's going to start the first 2 questions for us, and then we will move forward from there.
Great. So the first two questions have to do with just basic qualifications to be a member of the board. And the first is, are you related to anyone who works for the Park City School District?
Yes, my wife.
Great. And do you conduct any business with the Park City School District?
No, I'm on the security council, but got no business.
No business. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, we'll jump right in. Hi, Carlos, I'm Erin Grady, the president. I'll go around and just let everybody.
I'm Wendy Crosland, the vice president.
Andrew Kaplan.
Ann Peters, he spoke.
I'm Zach, and I'm going to be the new student on the board for next year.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome to your first meeting. Way to jump in, and then
Dr. Bill Day, superintendent, thank you for you.
And I'm Todd Harbor, business administrator.
and Lori.
And I'm Lori Pierce, the clerk to the board. Keeps everything together. Sometimes.
Always. Perfect. Okay, so the first question, two of the primary responsibilities of a school board are budget and policy. What are your experiences in working with budgets and writing and or reviewing policies?
Well, I was the assistant supervisor for the FBI in Puerto Rico. And one of my supervisors didn't do it, so he passed it on to me, and it was to do the salary or the budget. The policies, our policies are pretty well set, so we didn't do anything to change or introduce policies. And then later on, I was transferred to Mexico City. When for the whole part, all Mexico, and there I was the supervisor for a period, and then I became the legal attaché temporarily because I put my papers in to retire, and that was overseeing the budget. And there were some policies there that we did have to introduce or try to introduce with the Mexican government to make it more of a cohesive unit with the Mexican Federal Police and ourselves. That's basically my experience on that.
Okay, moving on. How would you prioritize appropriate levels of spending? So one of the jobs in budget includes prioritizing salaries, different positions, facilities, and doing this in a way that you're allowed to remain the fiduciary steward of tax dollars.
Well, I think I would prioritize positions as the number one level of spending here, and then moving on, the positions, of course, would fall in, the salaries would fall in after that. To me, the facilities would take lower priority.
All right. What do you see as current strengths and weaknesses of Park City School District?
I picked up a lot of stuff, just in the newspapers and talking to a few people and that stuff. I think there's a real lack of transparency in Park City School District. That is a real problem. The strengths, you've got a great cadre of teachers, instructors that are really good, and it's really a shame that so many of them are leaving. And your administrators, you have them leaving also. There's a program where you have your outreach program. I think that really has a lot to do with the the more disadvantaged people really, I think it's a big strength that Park City School District has.
Great, so a follow-up to that is an incoming board member. Do you have any priorities in mind for improving the district? And if so, please explain. how you
Well, it
plan
would be transparency, safety of the children, education.
And how, just to evolve, like, what are your ideas on how to become more transparent?
Well, one thing I see that there's a lot of appointments made. Some appointments, for example, I heard one of the administrators comment that the new gentleman that came in was the official translator for the school district, and he doesn't know Spanish. So that to me kind of bothers me. And I know that there is another translator that they use Google to translate. Google is a pretty good translating program, but it's not 100%. And after I left the FBI, I went to take the ankle bracelets into Mexico to introduce them to help them with their legislation and that stuff. We finally got the legislation, and we had a real problem using Google Translator. It was okay, but there was a lot of errors in it. So basically you had to redo it and everything instead. It's much easier to use a good translator.
How will you balance your role as a board member on a 5-person board while being an individual community member?
Well, I'm retired. I do have my own business, and I pretty much pick and choose what I'm gonna work on, when I'm gonna work on it. If I have to leave the country, I'm always scheduling it not to disrupt the family life and the responsibilities I have here.
Okay, one more. How do you see the board's role different from that of the superintendent? And how should the board best support the superintendent moving forward?
I think the board needs to, the superintendent and the board, I think, they're joined, but yet they're separated. And the superintendent should get, her ideas out. And the board should review those ideas and decide, not just rubber stamp them, but look and see how it would benefit the Park City School District. And if they agree with it, they should support the superintendent. If not, they should be able to tell the superintendent, I think you're wrong in this, or we don't agree with this. We think it would be better done this way.
Perfect. Do you have any questions for us or any follow-up?
I'm good.
Well, perfect.
Thank
Thank you
Yeah,
so
thanks for
much for your
coming.
time.
Yeah.
Coming. I'll walk you out and I'll grab that.
Or just half of one month?
Only these? No, you're done with
Do you want to ask me? All right. Your lunch is still sitting.
One of those days.
1:30, that's one of those days. How impressive. Yeah.
Zach, congratulations on your appointment. Did you run for this role or were you appointed or did you interview for it?
I had to interview for it, so it was an appointed position. And I had previously been in Mr. News, which is the student council teachers leadership class, which is over at Treasure. And she actually recommended me to do this position.
Very nice. For next year, one of the roles that you may take on in this seat is helping Mayor Nan Worrell to develop a city youth council. So it would be part of the Park City Leadership Student Council, with the treasurer rep, and then likely a rep from GSA and from Latinos in Action. And then we need a fifth. We need to figure out, should it be a younger student, maybe from Ecker? So you'll get to help create that with the mayor. And then you'll have a chance to go to a city council meeting and kind of learn about city government too. So it should be kind of fun. And then there's a special, you get to go to the Capitol one day.
Please join us right here, maybe.
So then you'll be kind of in charge of that.
All right. Thank you for joining us today. I know you, so I'm Erin. I'll have everybody go
I'm
around.
Wendy Crosland and
Andrew Copper.
I'm Zach.
Dr. Gilday, nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Todd Homer.
Hi, Todd.
And I'm Lauren Pierce.
Todd's going to kick off the question, so I'll let Todd and then we'll go from there.
All right, so I have two general screening questions. The first is, are you related to anyone who works for the Park City School District?
I'm not.
Do you conduct any business with the Park City School District?
I do not.
All right, we'll go straight to the first question. Two of the primary responsibilities of the school board are budget and policies. What are your experiences working with budgets and writing or reviewing policies?
I have two, I think, roles that have been relevant to this. I've been the PTO president at German Ranch for the last 3 years. So I've been actively involved in the budget and the policies of that, especially through COVID. That was quite an interesting experience, and revamping and changing our focus and our needs through that. And then also through this last year, I think it's been another change of going through, okay, now we're done with COVID and we have money to spend. We've been fundraising, and how do we use that? How do we appropriately appoint that throughout the school? And the needs have changed and varied over the last 3 years. So I've definitely had experience through that. I've also been on the board of the Park City Education Foundation. I am the chair of the Red Apple Gala, which I'm sure you know is the largest fundraiser for the Park City Education Foundation. So I've been involved in the master planning committee through that. The board, again, dealing with policies and fundraising and where that money is appointed through the school board. So through several different committees, I've also been on the major donor committee through that. So understanding where we're getting money and where it's going.
Thank you. Great. How would you prioritize appropriate levels of spending, including things like salaries, positions, facilities, and also doing so as a fiduciary in your fiduciary stewardship of tax dollars?
I think coming into this understanding that there's already been decisions that have been made, and supporting those decisions are huge. And knowing that I am not one person, but a part of a team and a committee that is acting on, again, decisions that you all have made over the past 4 and 5 years. I think understanding what those decisions have been made is important and huge, and supporting that going forward.
Great, thanks.
Okay, what do you see as a current strength and weaknesses of the Park City School District?
As a parent and, again, PTO president, hearing a lot of the concerns, I think equity among all the students is important. And making sure that all of the needs of all of the students is definitely a concern. I think communication and transparency is also a concern. So addressing those and making sure that I am a voice for the parents in my community, making sure that they're heard.
Perfect. I'm going to follow up with that one on the transparency. How would you be more transparent or help the board or district be more transparent?
Again, I don't know all of the communication that happens between you all, but understanding what has happened and how I can effectively communicate that with the parents in my children's schools. I have Jeremy and Ecker, how that is possible and what's realistic.
Are there any other priorities that if you serve on the board that you'd come in with in terms of improving the district that you would work on?
Again, I would go back to, I'm not sure everything that you all speak to behind closed doors, but I think it's understanding more of the agenda and what the needs are. There's some I know as a parent and on the other side of it, but there's some I don't know. So I think it's understanding the entire picture and how I can support that.
How will you balance your role as a board member on a 5-person board while still being an individual community member?
I understand that coming on a board as I'm one person. I'm not coming in to dominate. I don't have a political agenda. I am coming on to support and work together as a team. I know there is a need for 3 votes to pass anything and move forward. And I understand that and I want to support it. I'm not coming, again, I'll say with a political agenda. I'm not coming to change anything dramatically, but I do want to support the district. I'm a huge supporter of the district, but I want to support what's already here and in place and continue to do that.
Okay, one last one. How do you see the board's role different from that of the superintendent? And how should the board best support the superintendent moving forward?
I think they work together. I mean, I understand this, the board hires and fires the superintendent, but the superintendent also supports the board. So it's a 2-part, they must work together. They must have good communication. They must work together.
Perfect. Do you have any questions for us or anything else?
What are you looking for in somebody who's new to coming to the board?
I think this is really hard, right? Because these are like I think we are just looking for somebody who, again, has open communication, who is willing to be a part of a team and to understand that as an individual, you don't have any standing power. It's the board that as a collective that comes up with the decisions to help the superintendent and everybody at the district move forward and continue to keep this a great district.
I just want to say they have a point of view, right?
Yeah.
We all don't agree most of the time. But
Yeah, we do.
Get that?
Yeah. But we respect one another. We come from very different fields and industries, and I think that's why we are a strong board, is because we all have very different perspectives on things. We all have kids. We have very different children. So I think having a point of view is we don't want lemmings. We don't want, yes, people, we want people with ideas and, and really being the eyes in schools, right? You're in schools out there, we're all in these schools, so that's what I'm.
Yeah, and that's what makes the board function, is everybody who's willing to speak their mind and absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate you.
The effort here.
You might in an hour. I can imagine that bag. Anne's dream food. It's right there. It's the week,
Oh, yeah.
That's why so yeah, you just want to join us right over here. So perfect. DJ, and I introduce myself. I'm Erin Brady. I'm the president.
I'm Wendy Croslin. I'm the vice president. Nice to meet you.
Andrew Kaplan.
Ann Peters.
Go ahead.
Zach Smith.
Jill Gilday, Superintendent of Schools.
I'm Lori Pearson.
So thank you for joining us today. I'm actually going to have Todd start off the first two questions. So,
All right, and the questions are there on the table as well. So the first two questions are just general screening questions. Are you related to anyone who works for the Park City School District? Do you conduct any business with the Park City School District?
The only district that I conduct with the Park City School District is I'm a PCCAPS mentor, and that's
Great, thank you.
all right, perfect. So first question, two of the primary responsibilities of a school board are budget and policies. What are your experience in working with budget and writing and or reviewing policies?
I'll start with the policy question first. As a grad student at the University of Washington, I served as a student ambassador on a board similar to this, but for the College of Built Environments. So in terms of a policy standpoint, I understand listening to different people, different opinions, working through those policies, understanding the stakeholders that are involved from a student perspective, understanding where that comes from as a student, from a member of the committee noting how to work with other members that disagree or have different perspectives. In my current role as an architect as well, I'm quite used to being able to work with a collaborative measure of understanding client needs, contractor needs, different stakeholders at the time. From a budgeting standpoint, I've worked with a number of nonprofit and for-profit organizations, either through my university schooling and undergraduate or graduate school, as well as outside. Again, in my undergraduate career, I worked as a financial representative for a nonprofit group that supported charities involving the UVA hospital. From a profiting standpoint, as someone who is an architect, I've been able to work through budgets from something as large as $70 million on school projects to something as small as a $1 million remodel.
All right, how would you prioritize appropriate levels of spending, including things like salaries, positions, facilities work, while also balancing the fiduciary duty we carry as stewards of the tax dollars?
I think one, it's an understanding of looking at precedent, what as a school board have the members been working on, focusing on, and what have the people before me been really keen on making sure that we maintain. Second is understanding the stakeholders' priorities, understanding from the teachers union what their expectations are, understanding from parents what they expect from their child in terms of the budgets that are going to every one of those members. And then just from a taxpayer point of view, understanding where this money is going to, how that is representing for those who are parents of students to those who don't have any kids in the school system.
What do you see as current strengths and weaknesses of the Park City School District?
I think strengths is we are in a very specific spot as a community where so many people are involved. I know from just growing up here to being a member myself, there is not a person I've run into that isn't involved in the Park City School District in one interest or another, whether that's just attending a football game or whether that's actually being a PCCAPS mentor, being a coach, being a substitute. There are so many members of this community that are just so geared on education, not only for their students, but understanding that these students are going to come back. They're going to be people like me who come back to this community, who understand its values and want to continue the growth of that. I think the weaknesses are also in the sense that our values as a community are so strong that sometimes we have a tendency to be a little bit obstinate in our beliefs. I think even though Park City is of a very similar mindset, there are going to be people that are more of a transient population. We're seeing that a lot more with our demographics of people moving here from California and Texas who originally only had vacation homes here and now are looking for more permanent residences. So I think our weaknesses is understanding that even though we have a very clear value system and we really enjoy certain aspects of our lifestyles, it's understanding that people are coming into this community with different senses, whether that's in socioeconomic background, whether it's just coming from a different demographic altogether. So I think as a school board, I think it's an opportunity to understand that we have growing perspectives, and that's not necessarily a weakness for us if we don't see it as such and understand that people have more stakes in this.
All right, as an incoming board member then, based on those strengths and weaknesses you just identified, do you have any priorities in mind for improving the district? And if so, can you explain how you arrived at those?
So, not only coming from a community member, but coming from a student as well. I've sat in those desks, I've had those teachers, I had my diploma signed by Mo Hickey and the late Bob O'Connor. So I think what I can bring and balance as an incoming school board member is understanding not only that perspective, but also the perspective of a community member. And I think I can bring in a different perspective of, okay, not only is this your kid, but I've also been through this. So I know what it's like to be in those seats. I know how these budget cuts affect. I know how these policy changes are going to affect each student. So it's not only that perspective, but also I'm very keen on listening and from other perspectives. Even though I did grow up here, I had the opportunity to go outside of Utah to grow up and see different people. And I think having those sort of resources and bringing those back into the school board will be really helpful for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
How will you balance your role as a board member on a 5-person board while being an individual community member?
I think everyone can speak to this by being, a parent, being someone who operates in a business. We all are wearing so many hats. And I think it's a big understanding of how do those hats work together and when are those times that you need to set one hat down and pick another one up. I think, being a part of a 5-member group, I understand that we all have individual preferences, but at the same time, each one of these members are representing a district. They're representing not only their house, their neighbors, they're representing, someone from an entirely different neighborhood itself. So by balancing that idea of understanding, yes, I'm an individual who has my own values, but also there are my neighbors that have these values too. Being willing to listen to those values, being able to listen to those emotions and concerns for their children and being able to take those into account as well as my own.
One more. How do you see the board's role different from that of the superintendent? And how should the board best support the superintendent moving forward?
I think this goes to sort of an example of just how power is separated from just a basic standpoint. We hire a superintendent because of what their experience has done with other schools and how they've operated. But at the same time, then maybe the superintendent isn't coming from our individual neighborhoods. They're interested in looking at how does a whole district function as a one-person idea, rather than seeing, how can we support that superintendent? Not only support, but how can we respond to the superintendent? How can we review their policies, review what's going on, and see, as members who have maybe been here for longer, or as members who see it from more of a community standpoint rather than from a job standpoint, how can we revert from each of these and work together? So it's not necessarily the superintendent versus the board, but understanding that each has their own varied perspective, their own experiences, and how can we work together as a full unit.
Thank you. And do you have any questions for us?
I just want to say that this is an incredible opportunity, and I have very big shoes to fill, as so does any of the other candidates here. They all seem delightful, and you guys have a really tough job. Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
making the time
Yeah,
and
thank
coming.
you so much for coming.
Nice to meet you.
Sure. Now, we are done. We will move into the consent agenda, but I'll give Wendy a second to walk back and forth. All right, let's go. All right, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda that includes regular session minutes of March 15th, closed session minutes of March 15th, special regular session minutes of March 9th, special accounts payable registers of March 14th, 15th, 18th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 25th, 28th, 30th, 31st, and April 6th, personnel information, March expenses and revenues, school land trust plans, school TSSA plans, TMGH land trust revisions.
So moved.
Okay.
So
Second.
The March meeting is on the 15th.
The
Oh,
special.
is that the special?
That was the special, yeah. We did have the, Perfect. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will move on to employee. I don't see, do we have any update from Jake or Mary?
He went down to take his dog out and then there was a truck that tipped. So he did not think he could get here in time.
Okay, all
So
right,
he said he'll probably be stuck until 6:30.
okay. All right, well, we will move on then. Who would like the hot seat first? Dr. Rhoda?
This happens a lot. Thank you for a minute to just update you on a few important things. In the common consent agenda that you are voting on, you will be voting to approve the goals and expenditures of the school student achievement plans, or the SAAPs. Each of these plans is developed and approved by the school community council, which is comprised of a principal, the elected staff, and elected parents. The funding that's assigned to each of those plans is possible through revenues through State Land Trust and TSSA. And the funds, as you know, are regulated so that each school has to determine and show how those funds will be used to improve student outcomes. So for next school year, the 22-23 school year, the school goals and plans are really focused on supporting student growth, particularly when it comes to providing interventions for struggling students who are not demonstrating proficiency on district benchmarks or state assessments. As you review those plans, you'll see that each plan includes a minimum of 3 goals across 3 categories that include student achievement, staff development, and parent engagement. Examples of actions that have been identified in those school plans to achieve goals are maintaining and hiring staff, such as classroom aides and interventionists, as well as specific support for students who are multi-language or English language learners. Additionally, many of those plans include job-embedded staff development opportunities for teachers to learn, implement, and receive feedback for high leverage strategies that are defined in our PCSD instructional framework. Those school level goals and actions align very closely with our Reach the Summit strategies, and they help ensure that primary classroom instruction is intentionally planned and delivered for individual student needs. I think you'll see their great plans. This afternoon, I also want to remind the board and our PCSD families that state assessment is starting here in Park City School District the last week of April, which is next week, if you can believe it. These important exams give our parents, teachers, and school leaders an understanding of our academic progress toward Utah core standards. While it's challenging to use a single assessment as a measure of achievement, the scores on those state assessments tell us a great deal about what learning targets we need to set for students and how we need to help students fill their gaps. Student data from the assessment also gives us important information about how to adjust and to improve instruction year over year. It's important that we create an understanding of the importance of those assessments in Park City School District. We appreciate the support of our families in prioritizing student attendance during testing days. We would also ask that we do the best we can to reduce stress outside of school, help our students get plenty of rest, and provide encouragement for them as they complete their exams. We're doing that in schools. We're reminding our students of these same important principles, asking them to write and set individual goals, and focusing on helping them feel comfortable and confident as they test. During this past school year, we've experienced success in the implementation of our instructional framework, and we've seen evidence of its application in our new evaluation process. We've shifted toward coaching conversations aimed at supporting teachers and improving instruction. We continue to build the capacity for more transformational work by our school administrators and district leaders. With only about 5 weeks left in the school year, I want the board to know that our teachers, our staff, our school and district leaders continue to work efficiently and effectively. They're maintaining a focus on ensuring that our primary classroom instruction acknowledges individual students and works to meet their specific needs. Any questions about land trust plans or?
Does anybody have any?
No.
Thank you for all the awesome work. Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Tanner.
Good afternoon. The board update for operations for the 19th of April. From a COVID perspective, the COVID is on the low transmission index in the county. It's basically flatlined. We're not seeing any return. No confirmed cases in the district at all, which is pretty nice. So we've returned our school programming back to normal for most cases. So field trips are going, celebrations of the year are happening. So unless we see a return to spiked COVID numbers with this new variant that's emerging in China, we'll keep with that stance. So we're watching it closely, but for right now, we're back to ops normal. I want you to know that our mitigation procedures are still in place. We're still heavily filtering the air, ionizing it, UV filtration. We're also keeping our enhanced cleaning protocol in place, just as probably a best practice that we'll maintain in the future. We are keeping the Park City School District Eccles testing clinic open 7:15 and 9:15. Today's school is in session for this week and maybe next, just in case we can catch some people returning from break that might have some issues. After that, if the numbers stay low, we might turn it just to an on-demand. Hey, if you need a test, call this person and I'll set you up. It's kind of a strange update. The Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, a group that I had never heard of before, contacted me last week and said, hey, we passed a federal grant and we've got all the air filtration units that you need for your classrooms available for you. And I said, what's the catch? And apparently there's not one. So we've got 500 portable devices that are going to be deployed to our classrooms and all of our offices for free, along with the air filtration. So I thought this was one of those scams where they provide the filter or device and we have to buy their chain of supplies for it, and that's not the case. So we're looking forward to that happening pretty soon. From a buildings and grounds perspective, we're working through the capital outlay budget to prioritize the projects under a much reduced allocation of about $3 million. We're used to operating with $6 to $7 million allocation to work to get at those projects that happen every year. So we're managing our priorities to be the most effective with the resources that are available. We're working towards securing a firm summer date for Eccles for the catwalk construction. We've run a few delays there in trying to get the contractor to commit to a timeline. We are putting our foot down with them to get them to commit to it. We think we'll be able to support a mid-July date with Park City Institute to get into facilities, but we just don't have that go ahead right now. But we anticipate it coming soon. The server room move from the Park City High School to the district office, you probably heard, was delayed. Drew got that message out pretty good. We could have still supported the timeline, but Drew was getting a little nervous that you take the technology down for district and it's not something you can mess with. So okay, let's just do it towards the end of the year. So that first week after school's out is when we're going to have the work completed, and that's well underway. We did have some supply chain delays in that one of the air conditioning units that we received was pierced with forklift, and of course getting a new one with the supply chain delays was nearly impossible. And the generator, even the parts to repair the generator we swapped in there were hard to get. So those are the two things that slowed us up. We do have 2 RFPs to market. One we just awarded to a contractor for inspecting our building plans and material inspection services for our construction projects. That work is underway. Working with MOCA closely on that. And the master facility plan progress continues in a timely and orderly fashion. We're executing very well on it. Material and color selections are firming up, if you can believe that. And furniture discussion is going to be happening in early May already. But the architects are at the schematic design stage. I mean, they've just about got this firmed up to a point that the blueprints are in place, that all the mechanical systems, everything. I just received a 1,350-page submission from a VCBO for just Jeremy Ranch, to give you the idea of the depth of the projects. And so they'll take those packages out to marketplace, bid those, and hopefully we'll be underway. And so we're looking forward to work for summer 2022 starting up here pretty soon. From a transportation perspective, we've got 1 driver returned to us, which was very nice. We've got 1 in the pipeline under the new sub rate that we approved and moved forward. So that's nice. We did get our bus UV infiltration systems now installed in all of the buses. That just happened this week. And still the transportation operation manual is under development and community review and hope to be rolled out for the new year. Child nutrition services, still two cooks short at Jeremy and Trailside. John's working to fill those slots as best he can. He's got some great equipment enhancements he's requested within the FY23 capital outlay budget to help with the board's initiatives towards healthier eating and scratch cooking in the kitchens. So those have survived the budget red line so far and are moving along. And supply chain issues, as I've briefed before, are causing continuous menu swap outs, but the team is getting pretty good at working around them. Unfortunately, the free meal waiver that was available all this year is going away at the end of this school year. And we're going to have an end of year outreach program to optimize the number of students that are applying for free and reduced lunch to make sure that we get to touch as many kids as we possibly can that need it. Human resources is struggling right now, and with all the labor market conditions, as you know, are all aligning to make staffing at the school district tough. So we're looking through FY23 budget options to see what kind of enhancements we can make. And we'll probably have some discussions with the board about that in the near future. And just let you know, our recruiting efforts are continuing. Interviews are full steam this time of year, and Shad's really got his hands full. From a security perspective, kind of an interesting development. Sheriff Martinez from the county reached out and said, "Hey, I've got this great new notification platform that if a teacher has an issue in a classroom, they can hit an app on their phone, and a dispatch center signal will pop up that shows exactly what classroom that's the problem is, and we can send it to the deputy directly there and shorten the response time." And I said, "Sheriff, that's funny you were talking about that, because I just received a product demo for the same product yesterday." So we're going to try to get together the superintendents and with Sheriff Martinez very soon to review that, and hopefully as a county, all three school districts will get on the same platform, share training resources, get our dispatch center, which is the same for all the schools, really good at one thing, get all the deputies trained up. So I think it potentially could be a really great security enhancement, and that's moving forward. I received 2 additional product demos on a similar platform, and also another weapons detection system that I'm taking a look at to see if it's the right fit for Park City or not. Anyone who wants to come, tomorrow's security committee meeting is the 20th, tomorrow at 10 till noon here. And we will have Chevron donuts if that makes anybody.
Those are good.
So that's all I have for you today.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything. Thank you. Is Dr. Reynolds here for, and she is, would you like to join us up here? Yeah, then I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
They're gonna sit in this hot seat now.
You get to sit in the hot seat.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
I don't need to plug in where I should be able to.
Yeah, you should go.
Is it off? Is it on?
I think, yeah, it's just gonna say
Is that why our seats were so close?
That's not yet.
Go ahead and click on here.
Mary.
Okay, good evening, Board President Grady, Vice President. Vice President Crossland, Dr. Gaudet, and the rest of the superintendents of the cabinet. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak with you this evening to be able to let you know where we're at with our coalition, our task force. Okay, so the reason it has April 6th as the date is because we work from some of the slides from the 6th. That's when we had our last meeting. All right, we just want to get back to the big picture, the work of the coalition. We want to make sure that everyone knows that we are grounded in ensuring that all of our students, all of our staff experience safety and belonging as we all contribute to our PCSD organization. We want to do that through an inclusive, right, education and professional experience for all. And so our work is also grounded in our coalition for safe and inclusive schools. Remember when we first started off with the task force, we talked about equity, access, and opportunity, and that has really shifted as we move to not only having equity, opportunity, and access, but safety and inclusivity for our students and for our staff. So we're working around building existing policies, right? Building on those, making them more robust. And as an advisory committee, we also speak to the superintendent and the board, so we're a resource. I put these agreements in here because within our team, our coalition, these are some of the agreements that we have agreed upon as a coalition. And so when we do this equity work, this diversity work, this inclusion, this belonging, we want to make sure that we're staying engaged, right? That's for all of us to stay engaged. Speak our truth responsibly, listen to understand. We always want to seek to understand and seek to be understood. Be willing to do things differently, right? And that might require us to experience discomfort at times. Expect and accept non-closure, right? Just because we go through this, we have this, doesn't mean like, okay, now we know it all, we can get out there. It helps us and it empowers us to have tools to be able to go out and do the work. But there's always times where we don't have closure to something, we're always thinking about it. And then confidentiality is really important for us in terms of how we're doing this work and giving respect to the professionalism of the work. So our key steps, each work team identified areas of interest, right? So those, last time I presented to you, those were the subcommittees. So we took those subcommittees and people were able to look and see, hey, where would I be a best fit given my talents and given my interests? And so we looked at those priorities, and then what they've been doing is brainstorming ideas, goals, thinking about what resources they need within that committee to really take on those action steps. So each team, they prioritized designated job roles to support diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And notice that, so right there, we're dealing with, the acronym is DEIB, which you'll see in the column on the right, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So we're moving from, oh, diversity, I love it, it's great. That's great. We have to kind of move on this continuum, right? When we think about equity, we think about what does our district need, right? We're not giving everyone the same thing. We know that. We give our students, we give our staff, we give everybody what they need. And that would be equity. And then inclusion, it's great to be inclusive, but I think of this one as, we want all people to feel as though they belong. However, we can have the greatest intent, but our impact, right, might look a little different. So with that inclusivity comes belonging. We not just want to create atmospheres, environments of inclusion, but we want our students and our faculty to belong. We are PCSD strong. And if we continue with that, then we know that we don't just want to include and say, hey, well, I invited them, I was being inclusive, but am I also fostering a sense of belonging? So that's what we're really thinking about. And that is incorporated in our mission and our vision of our school district. Going over to the right, each team understands their key role, like the policy development, right? And how that policy development, it plays a role in ensuring that the community and the district's commitment is interwoven into everything that we do. So it's the fabric that connects. For those who do quilting, right? Every single piece of fabric is connected, right? And so for our organization, it's steeped in our philosophy, our values, our hiring, curriculum, and training. And that's not what we might have seen in the past, but we know that's where we want to go. So there might be some things where it's like, oh, I don't know if I've seen that yet, but we will continue to see that as we move on with diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So those are our key steps. These are some of the takeaways as we talked to the teams, and the teams, they created slides on what some of the things were that they truly wanted. And so some takeaways from that, definitely to have, and different terms are being used. I just want to make sure, because you will hear chief diversity officer, you will hear, a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging coach. I mean, there's plenty of different terms that you will hear. The bottom line is somebody in that role to be able to take care of our district as we need it to be taken care of. So that would start out, if we're looking at the left, the district level CAEO leadership, and that stands for, sorry, I just totally drew it blank. Curriculum, sorry. Thank you, Chief Academic Equity Officer, thank you for that. And so we had Chief Academic Officer, right? That equity component is something new in there. So when you're looking for a person that's going to be in that role, you're looking for a person that has some type of familiarity, a background of some kind with equity. And that could look very different. It doesn't mean that they've worked for a company that does diversity, equity, inclusion, but based on their experiences, what do they know about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, right? And then we have a DEIB coach, educator role. So that's someone who is able to kind of take the reins under the direction of the CAEO and kind of go out to schools, right? And really support our administrators and support our teachers in terms of what we are experiencing in schools. And then a Title IX internal compliance staff, it's super important that when you look at this diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, that you know that there needs to be compliance with it, right? There's data. Who looks at the data? Who records the data? How do we provide that data? If we were to have something happen, so for example, when I was working in another district, OCR complaints, Office of Civil Rights complaints, right, were something that we dealt with. And so you need a person who is well-versed. So if they're working with the legal team, if they're working with student services, if they're working obviously under the umbrella of the Chief Academic Equity Officer, you want someone who is well-versed in how to deal with those complaints when they come to you, right? So, and that deals with the compliance, and then also our state Title IX. Then when we get there in the middle, so another set of takeaways was, what are our next steps? How do we evaluate the program that we're going to put into place, the framework, right? That's really important, because we need to not only have a checks and balances to do the things that we need to do, but we need to be able to say, okay, and reflect, like, is this working? If it's not, what do we need to do next? And in education, that's what we call that DeFore model of PLCs, right? Is it working? Is it not? What do we do now? So how do we provide support to our program, to our frameworks that we want to be putting in place? And then obviously ongoing committee work and teamwork. How does this committee that is currently in place, how does that fit in with the possible future structure of a Chief Academic Equity Officer, of a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging coach, as a Title IX external compliance staff officer? What does that look like? Where does the committee fit in? Does the committee meet with somebody on that chain? Does the committee look different because maybe it's administrators, maybe it's teachers? I mean, it could be a different configuration altogether, but that's where the consideration of the ongoing team comes from, right? And then policy review, always looking at the existing policies and saying, does this fit the need of our district? Again, looking at the equity component. And then what support professional services are we going to secure to support us in our mission and vision, right? And then when we go over to the right side, funding and budget, that's always fun. That's fine, Mr. Halbert.
I need to know.
No money, no. So that's the funding and the budget, right? Because those pieces are going to be able to fund those roles on the left-hand side, in the left-hand column, right? And then you want to make sure that there's adequate funding to support also research and development, whether that's somebody that's in-house or we're pulling somebody from the outside, right? The University of Utah, the U, the Y. There's plenty of different research institutions here within our state that we can use definitely the skills of not just researchers, but doctoral students, doctoral students, right? And then the last thing is documenting the journey, the actions and the accomplishments. The best thing about data is that we're able to celebrate it, right? And so when you think about this, you think about how do we document where we were, where we are, and where we're going to be. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is dimensions of diversity. And the reason this is important is because a lot of times people, when they go to diversity, you know, they're thinking it's a binary. It's either this or it's that. When they go to equity, they're thinking, oh my gosh, you're talking equity. That's a dirty word. What does that mean? What are we doing? Are people getting things that other people aren't getting? Are they not? Right. And so I just want to draw your attention to the wheel, because when you look at the wheel, there's the inner embedded sphere. Right. And those are things that we have no control over. We have no control over our age. When we're born, right? And we move on from there. So looking at those, it's really important to think about, what do we have control over? What do we don't, right? What do our students have control over? What do they not? And how does that reflect in how we provide access and opportunity, how we provide a sense of inclusion and belonging? So that's super important. And then when you go to the outer sphere, those are some things we kind of have control over, right? For us. Some things were, you know, it's just what we know. But some of these things we do have control over. If you look at how you grow from when you were 18 making decisions to where you're right now in your life, it's a very probably different you, right? And so we also can think about those, what we have control over versus what we don't, and how does that impact our vision as we move forward as a district when we're looking at diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So as we move forward, our next steps, we will be meeting tomorrow, and tomorrow when we meet, like I said, our teams they created slides. So we're going to be fleshing out those slides. We want to make sure that if there were people that weren't present on the 6th, that they're present and they have an opportunity to ask questions, right? Clarifying questions of the slides. So that is our work for tomorrow. And then from there, we will move into equity policy and how we create an equity policy for the district.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Dr. Reynolds, I just want to shout out and thank you being on the coalition with you. You've done an incredible job putting this stuff together as a side with your work and made it so clear. And thank you. Your guidance has been incredible.
Well, I couldn't have done it without all of you, so I appreciate that, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you really got me into it, Vice President Crossland, with the policy.
Nail that out. Yeah.
But thank you. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to show up. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out. All right, before we move on to Superintendent, I'm actually going to invite the ladies from the CJC for Chloe. And Chloe, I'm sorry, I don't know your friend's name, but if you guys would like to join us, if they're off. How are you?
How are you?
Good. Congratulations. It looked like you had a very successful weekend for week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chair and members of the Park City School Board. My name is Chloe Terrell.
And my name is Bailey Carmack. We are both in 11th grade at Park City High School.
Together, we serve as youth liaisons to the advisory board of the Children's Justice Center of Summit County. We have been working with the advisory board for the past year. Our role is to bring a youth voice to Children's Justice Center of Summit County.
April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Child maltreatment is a national and global issue that affects all sectors of society and crosses socioeconomic, racial, religious, and multicultural boundaries.
It's important for us to help foster awareness of child maltreatment and to help ensure a comprehensive response to child maltreatment in our community.
Many citizens may not be aware of all the child protection workers at our Summit County Children's Justice Center. Chloe and I have had the opportunity to meet detectives, child protective service workers, prosecutors, interviewers, medical professionals, therapists, victim advocates, and more. The CJC even has its own therapy dog.
When children report maltreatment to a trusted adult and the trusted adult calls the hotline or law enforcement, this team of professionals convenes at the CJC to provide a comprehensive response. It's pretty amazing.
We also want to remind all adults that they are mandatory reporters.
It's ingrained in us starting in first grade that if we are not safe, we should tell a trusted adult.
Children then rely on trusted adults to do their part and notify the hotline or law enforcement.
This system can ensure that every child can find the path to safety, health, and resilience.
Raising awareness is critical to prevent child maltreatment. We are here to ask you to help us.
We handed you a copy of a resolution, which we hope you will adopt to declare April Child Abuse Prevention Month in the Park City School District.
We saw that President Biden declared a National Child Abuse Prevention Month a few weeks ago. We hope the Park City School Board will do the same.
We would like to read our proposed resolution to the school board, if that's okay with you, Ms. Chair.
Yes.
Whereas child abuse and neglect is a complex and ongoing problem in our society affecting many children in Park City, and
whereas every child is entitled to be loved, cared for, nurtured, feel secure, and be free from verbal, sexual, emotional, and physical abuse and neglect. And
whereas it is the responsibility of every adult who comes in contact with a child to protect that child's inalienable right to a safe and nurturing childhood. And
whereas Park City has dedicated individuals and organizations who will work daily to counter the problem of child maltreatment and to help parents obtain the resources and assistance that they need. And
whereas our communities are stronger when all citizens become aware of child maltreatment prevention and become involved in supporting parents to raise their children in a safe and a nurturing environment. And
whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnerships among families, social service agencies, schools, religious and civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community.
Whereas all citizens, community agencies, faith organizations, and businesses will work to increase their efforts to support families.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Park City School Board hereby proclaim the month of April 2022 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month in the Park City School District.
Thank you.
I think that's a yes from all of us.
And you did this already at the councils for the city and the county, right? Yeah. Wow. Well, congratulations. This is a lot of work you put together.
It is.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for
Thank
coming and for all the work. And yes,
Yeah,
we will
You want
move this
sign
forward. Do you want me to sign this
right
one?
there?
Do you want me to, I don't know if you want me to sign it. but-
How, yeah, that's better. How has the experience been putting this all together?
It's been cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we've both learned a lot through this experience, and it's something that means a lot to both of us and
Yeah.
something that we really enjoyed.
What's the most challenging part of it then?
I mean, sitting in the meetings, it's something that we haven't been a part of before. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes we don't know what's going on because it's our first time being on an official meeting, but being able to ask questions and come and present things like this, it's really eye-opening and we're learning a lot for sure.
Right, most kind of cool stuff.
Yeah, I think like this has been pretty cool though, to feel like we're making a difference and actually doing something. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you are.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving us the chance to
Thank
be
you.
part of
Thank
this.
you.
Thank you.
Zach, are you prepared with an update or do you?
No,
Okay.
I just give him 411.
He's like,
You think of that?
you don't have to at all, so don't worry about it. If
Yeah.
you don't want to, I'll just skip on to the superintendent.
Yeah.
Is that great? Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we welcome you. And I hear that this might be a 2-year appointment, is that correct?
Maybe.
Maybe, okay, all right.
That's how much you like.
Yeah, he's like, it might be a 1 meeting appointment and I'm out. Superintendent.
That's because we're just assigning all kinds of jobs. As we spring forward in April of 2022, I'm so very pleased with the ongoing work of the Coalition for Safe and Inclusive Schools. Each meeting we've grown with additional members and we've come together around key principles and ideas, including areas of personnel and budget development to support this important work moving forward. In this coalition, we continue to iterate with purpose and the intention of moving the school district towards our aspirational vision and mission and supporting our students and our staff equitably. Today, all families should have received via an email message the monthly April district newsletter. This web-based publication provides communications about programs on an annual calendar. Looking ahead, please plan to take a peek at the June newsletter, which focuses on the success of the 2022 graduating class, our students and their outcomes, celebrate the academic, athletic, arts successes of our young people, as well as our school system. Our educators, administrators, staff, and community partners join together to celebrate the consistent, purposeful, and intentional efforts that provide an exemplary experience for our students. I'm also pleased to share that in our latest budget draft, we are presenting a balanced budget that supports key board and community priorities. In early May, the superintendent's budget draft is made available to the public in advance of the June budget approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I am, and if you don't mind, I know that Board Member Peters has to step out at 5:30, so I'm actually going to go through policies quickly and then move on to public comment, and then I think that'll put us, and then we'll end with master plan update. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, I think Mr. Tanner covered most everything. The only thing I would add is that we closed our private placement of the lease revenue bond.
Okay.
And have awarded that. So
Perfect.
we're moving forward.
Awesome, thank you. Okay. All right, so policies for posting. Can I get a motion to post the following policies? Policy 1002, fraud hotline, policy 2010, eligibility for qualifications for board members, policy 9080, graduation requirements, and policy 10060, conduct on school buses.
I make a motion for policies for posting as stated.
Second. Any discussion? No. All right, all in favor of posting? Aye. Perfect. Policies for adopting, and a motion to approve policy 9021, school-based learning programs.
I make a motion to adopt policy 9021.
Second. Have we had any comment come back on this policy? Perfect. Any discussion? Perfect. All in favor of adopting?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. All right, policies for retiring, policy 7170, educator evaluation, permanent process.
Can make the motion to retire policy 7170.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. That's unanimous. All right, we will move on to public comments. All right. The Board of Education wants to hear live input from community members at our meetings. In order to respect and preserve the time allotted each presenter on the agenda, each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers representing a group will be limited to 5 minutes. If you wish to address the board, please fill out the blue public comment sheet and hand it to Lori. Each speaker will be invited to the rostrum to speak in the order in which the forms were received. The Board of Education expects that all public comment be polite, respectful, and accurate. Please refrain from specifically identifying personnel. We will not be discussing any personnel issues. They are not appropriate for public comment, therefore no such comments will be allowed. So I will start with Ari. And I have, would you like to join us? Thank you.
It's nice to be back in front of a board after so much time. Over 15 years ago, I sat here before I ever moved, speaking to the board. So, while many use this time to express concerns about local schools, I'm here to talk about an exceptional program made possible by the teachers and administration here at Park City School District, and by extension, you. The Park City Institute Student Outreach Program is transforming the lives of Park City students by exposing them to experiential learning opportunities that support STEM, acceptance, diverse voices, and world-class performance opportunities. The report was presented to Dr. Gilday. I have a copy in case you want it. Back in August of 2021, outlining 7 student engagement opportunities for the 2021-22 school year. The list represented master classes, performance opportunities, and special assemblies for over half of our main stage performances. 2 were at the request of PCSD teachers. Ultimately, these programs touch virtually every high school student. Here's a quick overview. During the Thanksgiving break, which is odd because students usually don't like coming back during the Thanksgiving break. Legendary drummer and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Danny Seraphin of the rock band Chicago visited the students enrolled in teachers Chris Taylor's Park City High School jazz band. This was at the specific request of Chris Taylor. When we told him we were thinking about getting Danny Seraphin, he kind of went a little nuts. Anyway, the students came in on their day off to rehearse with Seraphin. They then performed together at a free community concert at the Eccles Center in Park City. They received a standing ovation from a large crowd, stellar performance. It helped that they were able to perform songs like Saturday in the Park and 25 or 6 to 4. Danny said he was inspired and thoroughly enjoys working with students at the Park City High School and said he would return anytime. A quote from Chris Taylor here. Park City, is it okay if I mention teachers' names in this context? We're praising you. Nice, thank you. Park City Institute has been amazing as far as bringing in the arts. They're really working hard to make sure that educational component is there. Anytime we get an opportunity to have a professional musician come in and help us out, it's priceless. One of our students, is it okay if I mention a student's name? No. Okay. This is a keyboardist with the jazz band. I learned from Danny that music is something that allows us to escape into other dimensions. Danny has made music seem more clear way of how we can actually live our lives even more. One of the other musicians said he had played in bands and actually played Chicago hits before. And he was just thrilled to do it. He said to sit down and play a concert setting with him, meaning Danny, while still in high school is just fantastic and hard to believe. In early December, players from the Second City, the world's premier comedy club, comedy theater, and school of improvisation conducted an improvisational work class in Park City students. Area students who were instructed in debate, drama, and comedy were encouraged to participate. Students learn more than just to be funny, but the rules of improv, yes, and that emphasizes acceptance of any idea and adding more to it is a tool that helps in collaboration. Also, the tools of yes and are useful towards acceptance of different voices. On February 11th, Terry Virts, a retired NASA astronaut, International Space Station commander, and space shuttle pilot, took the center stage for an all-school assembly at the Park City High School. This was actually, the assembly had better feedback than the show. It was really neat how the students responded to it. Virts shared stories, obviously, about the physics of space and what it was like to live in space, but he also talked about his trouble that he had in school. He said he was never really good at writing. And he said, it's important that you learn how to learn, because when you learn how to learn, you never know what you're going to be asked to do later. He was asked to write 2 books, and he's published 2 books now. So you think a math and science guy coming out and doing that. So on April 9th, 23 music students presented a composition composed during a 3-day residency with famed chamber group So Percussion. Now, those of you who aren't percussionists won't get excited about this, but I will tell you, I was super excited to have them. Brett Hughes requested that they come. I was super excited that we were able to make this happen. This all immersive outreach gave the students the opportunity to collaborate over 3 days with one of the premier percussion ensembles in the world and finally perform live on the Eccles stage. This was in conjunction with our main stage series. So it wasn't just with their parents. And this is what Brett said. Students leave these experiences excited about the art they've created, and they leave excited to practice their instruments and perform on their own art. I'm out of time.
That's the music that plays. You're supposed to wrap it up.
I will wrap it up. Anyway, I will go on. 2 more things. Dance Theater of Harlem is coming. I'm excited about this because they were formed, for those of you who don't know, after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, to prove that people like me, who were raised in the Deep South in the midst of overt segregation, that African Americans could do anything. And they did, and they do. And they will come here and teach with the dance class. 2 of the teachers will come here. Finally, we have 3 student interns working on the taping of the soon-to-be nationally syndicated show, The Professor Rock. This show is going to end up on something like Axe or HBO. Students will have their IDs there. This will be on their resumes. And then supporting our DIA goals, we will be presenting a dedicated Latinx performance in Spanish featuring Grammy Award-winning Grupo Fantasma. So I'd like to thank everyone here who made this possible, and the teachers. You guys are doing great work, and we're going to do even better things next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shannon. Like I don't see Shannon, she's hiding back there.
She's always at the back corner.
Hi, Shannon Hallowell Shimmer. I saw that you were posting graduation progress policy number 9080, I think. And I'm just not sure if everyone in this room is familiar with that policy, but at the bottom of the policy, from a number 4C, the Board of Education Seal of Distinction. And it is struck through, and I assume that is the intention to eliminate that. And I just wanted to make sure before you eliminate it, you're aware of the history. A board many years ago was very excited to offer that as an acknowledgement of effort and work if somebody happened to choose an academic excellence path. I would equate it to if you go to college and then you achieve summa cum laude, magna cum laude, and there's a little sticker placed on your Park City diploma. It's about the size of a quarter, and it's gold seal or a silver seal. It might not mean a lot if you don't know the history behind it, but that little sticker requires 4 years worth of work. Our oldest son was told about it by his counselor in 2013, so I can tell you it goes back that far. He put in 4 years of work, he got his little gold seal. Our next child came through. You know, there's a little less advertising about it, but if you go to the Park City High School counseling tab, you open it up, you can find out all the information about that seal of distinction. So our second son has graduated last year and he also achieved that seal. I now have the third son that in our family, we just always do things equally and treat our kids equally. And that's just always been our policy. And it saddens me that you're going to do away with this when he's done 3 years out of 4 years worth of work for this. And so I just want to give the heartfelt parent appeal to, you know, not do away with something that somebody is already 75% through the work. And it really doesn't cost anything. It's something that the counselors at the end of the year receive an application with the intent to do it. So somebody has to take that piece of paper and either put it electronically into their folder or put it into a paper folder. I'm not sure which we're using right now. And I don't know how many students are doing it, but I know that my son was very disappointed when I told him about that. And so this is the posting time and I'm trying to help not have it happen. And he's got a core of friends that he encouraged to do it. And I just don't want to see a bunch of juniors. And I don't know how many sophomores and I don't know how many freshmen. But if you're going to take it away, then I'm pleading with you to choose to do it at the start of the incoming 9th grade class, that it will be phased out. Or, personally, if we celebrate football success or being a great dancer or I don't understand why we can't celebrate academic success. I don't know why we don't want to celebrate that. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Super important. Yeah. Dr. Hunt, was there any?
So one of the goals was that we were going to phase it out, but there has not been much interest in it. I think that the freshman applications that we have are 0. So
Maybe that is.
despite it was the counselors that suggested that it be struck because it's not really something that seems to be of interest to students.
So
You could phase it out.
we're doing that. Perfect. All right. And we can follow up with Shannon too. Sure. Thank you. All right. James Martin, would you like to join us?
Hi, my name is Jim Martin, and I've been the principal at Trailside Elementary since August 2021. It seems like my speaking today is causing a little bit of angst. So I've revised my thing multiple times and changed it. And so I'm just going to talk to you a little bit. My plan was to talk a little bit about transparency today. And so that's what I'm going to address, especially since 2 of the candidates mentioned that it was an issue in Park City. And it is. So I can speak to you specifically about some examples of things that you might consider doing and paying attention to increase the transparency in our district. First of all, I have received positive feedback from my supervisor, from the people that I've worked with, and that seems to be in conflict with the position that I'm in now, the situation that I'm in now. In February, I asked my direct supervisor if she might write me a letter of recommendation because I was considering going into an MBA program. And I'm going to read you just the last portion of that letter dated February 28th. Jim is a team player who is willing to spend time and energy wherever and whenever it is needed. He has taken on additional responsibilities and provided leadership in areas where the district is needed and utilized his expertise. Specifically, he has been proactive in supporting a district-wide English language arts curriculum evaluation. He has quickly become a respected part of the Park City School District leadership team. So it's really kind of baffling. That doesn't seem very transparent, wouldn't you say? I'm very transparent. I've been very transparent with the teachers, but I've also found out that it's not okay for me to share data with the school community, for me to let the Trailside community know how their students are doing in a public sort of way, like a newsletter. I've done this at every single district I've been in because it's important for parents to know. Trailside Elementary community has no idea that Trailside is the worst performing school in our district. They could be at 80% if leaders were actually doing their jobs. And they should be there because the kids are capable of being that high, 80% proficiency. But unfortunately, we lag around the 50%, and that's not because of COVID, even though everybody will tell you that's what it's about, because that's where we were beforehand. And so we're not going to make growth unless we're transparent and we can be honest with one another. I also was trying to be honest using the evaluation program that you so carefully approved, and was told that I needed to give every single teacher an effective rating in my building. So that's exactly what I did. I think that the community has no idea that our Trailside kindergarten is on state improvement because we don't tell them those things. The students and families at Trailside are wonderful, despite what I was told when I first got hired here. They deserve district leadership that is going to be honest with them. And they also deserve action so that students are performing at their potential. Thanks for the opportunity to work here, and I know I made a difference at Trailside. So look at the test scores this year.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Do we have any more with master plan things? Or are we, okay, what you,
We had concluded the solicitation on the construction farm. Science Bank is the one who was awarded that. So we'll be moving forward with that. Closing should be in May, first, second of May.
okay,
So all the financing is coming together now for all of our 6 projects.
perfect. Thank you for all your work with that, Pat. All right, I will make a motion to adjourn to our actually special session meeting on Monday, April 25th at 5:30 p.m.
Until our next meeting on April 25th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. You too. Enjoy your Sunday for dinner.
Well,
Let me-